Hello, hello, construction professionals. Welcome to the podcast where we flip the script on what it means to live, breathe, and lead construction today. In this podcast series, we unpack how great construction can really be when you lead with humanity, put people first, and drop the bullshit of the way it's always been done. Our world has changed, our conversations have changed, and it's time construction catches up. What's going on, team? Jonathan Snelly here. Today's conversation with Mike Kaeding, Norhart, is magical. We talk about from a high level the reduction of cost of construction to reduce costs by 30%. And Mike talks about how that's possible. He also talks about it starts with the philosophies of creating affordable housing for others. And then what that pivots into? The people, the culture of psychological safety he creates. He talks about the fake good. That same BS lip service that we see so many times from some other organizations out there. Mike talks about continuous improvement. He simply starts to understand that he's not good at things. In fact, he's bad at many things. And he spends his leisure time, I call it the word leisure time, learning. And he doesn't pivot into the typical learning of, well, how can I get better at my industry? How can I need to get better at estimating, go take an estimating course. No, he creates magic experience saying, I'm going to go and learn from the best of the best. I want to go take a course on the Disney experience. How do I create the experience? And that pivots into the psychological safety of his team and the people he works with. And he talks about the hard work that happens behind the scenes. And he truly actually cares about human beings. This is it, man. Mike takes us down the journey of the tug of war of being in construction and how he marries that with his love of tech and his love of people. Norhart. You go to their website, it is absolutely mind-blowing. This is not a 30-second hang out in this space and click, move on to the next. There's no pump on the tires of how great they are and, all the great projects they've done. They've dropped that BS. In fact, they've created such a magical experience on the website that it leaves me wanting more. So the conversation with Mike about leveling up and truly caring about the people and creating a culture of the best of the best. I mean, we're talking about he flies people in to work for Norhart because he understands that when you pay people well, they're going to bring that back tenfold. Mike is one phenomenal human being. So thanks for joining, and I'm going to volley this one right over to Mike. Mike, I think we're on. So welcome to the show, man. This is exciting. This is tremendously exciting.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. Look, I'm tremendously pumped. Sort of before we push the record button, I was just blown away with the awareness that you're creating as an organization, as a human being. I go to the website, folks, and I spend hours there literally because it's so attractive. It's so cool. It's so different. It's so unorthodox. And we talk about brand awareness. We talk about when you're up to big things, it's really tremendously exciting to allow the world the opportunity to come into that space and to hear it. So look, I want to volley this really over to you, Mike. Tell us about you. As a human being, as a person professionally, as a person personally, what's your story, man? I'm so curious.
Yeah, well, at a high level, I run a company called Norhart. We design, build, and rent apartments, but we're really focused on solving housing affordability by driving down the cost of construction. We're already achieving about a 20 to 30% reduction in cost. We believe we can reach a 50% reduction. But imagine what that means. It means someday your rent could be half, or your mortgage payment could be half. Think about the impact that could have on society. So that's the business side of things. On a personal side, I have a wife and two beautiful daughters, aged 3 and 5. They are so much fun. In fact, we've started now recording little videos and they have a YouTube channel and stuff, but they're so much fun. It is just a blast getting to come home to them every night. The excitement, the energy, their passion. It's cool to see.
Thank you for all that. There's a whole lot happening there, right? And the biggest thing that shows up first is your passion. And we talk about. I love. Thank you for sharing about your family. That is probably one of the most important things to me, because I think what we fail to realize too is that life is a holistic approach to things,
Yeah.
right? It's not like here's a professional scenario and here's Jonathan professional, here's Jonathan. Guys, organically it all melds together, and I think that that is something that um, I'm honored to share space with you because Norhart really, from what I've learned, actually embraces that and embarks on that. Um, uh, Curiosity, truly, like pivot back to Norhart. What's that? How the hell does this even come into vision?
Mm.
Like, what's the scoop, man? Because we're talking construction, and let's we're gonna talk raw here. You know what you said sounds amazing, and there's probably a lot of people out there who are just saying, "What the hell is he talking about? That's bullshit. How do you do all that?" So tell me the vision and how do we pivot into that?
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit of how it came about, and then we can talk about how we actually solve housing affordability. But the way it came about, ultimately, it was started as a family business. My
Mm.
parents started the business about 30 years ago, and I remember growing up with it. I remember driving out to the local hardware store for a family outing where we would fill up on materials and supplies, multiple carts worth, and bring that back. And we were working on these small buildings throughout the summer. And during the winter, I'd be off at school. And I did this a lot growing up. At some point, I went off to college, though. And I realized that I wanted nothing to do with the family business. Or at least that's what I thought. I got into virtual reality and special effects and computer science and management and other things. And my dad really wanted me to join the family business. After graduating, I really wrestled with that, and I wrestled with it because I didn't want people to think it was given to me. It was very small at the time, but still, I wanted to kind of make a meaningful, positive impact on the world. And the more I thought about it, though, the more I realized that if my dream really is to make a meaningful, positive impact, then why not take this starting point that my parents have given us and use that for something good? And so I started to understand, like, well, we could use this to work to solve housing affordability. And that's when I started getting excited. Like, wow, we could actually do something meaningful with this business.
Holy smokes! Holy smokes is all I can say to that. I mean, what's really exciting, and for the audience out there who really doesn't know um, much about what we're talking about today, it's really intriguing to me that you talk about that tug of war, how you wrestled with, like, do I want to get into this? Do I not? And I'm making an assumption, so kindly clarify here, because there's sort of the old ideologies of construction, the way it's sort of
Yeah.
always been, and the rough and toughness and the luck. It's not always pleasant at times, right?
Hmm.
What's super exciting to me is you talk about the computer sciences and the virtual reality aspect of things, and that makes my brain go like this because when I go to Norhart website, it is exactly what you're talking about. Like I got a warm feeling, I got a warm connection. It is not the traditional, um, st- and I'm going to say this purposefully, the stereotypical approach of here's the projects we've done, here's what we're up to, here's our team, here's all about us. It was I kept wanting more. It's the
Mm.
it's the images, the graphics. I'm not gonna spoil it for folks. You got to go there yourself and check it out because it's tremendously amazing. Norhart to me is up to a whole bunch of things, and it sounds like one of the things you really do is you embrace people
Yeah.
wholeheartedly, right?
Oh yeah. You know, the number one most important lesson that I've ever learned in life, it totally changed the world for me, was to find and hire and bring on the very best people and then create an amazing culture that attracts them and it empowers them to do incredible work. You know, when we talk about finding truly amazing people, I truly mean the best in the world. We fly people in from other states every week to come work here during the week and fly them home. We have give you some sense of the caliber of people. We have a guy that Steve Jobs announces the iPhone in 2007. Steve Jobs walks off stage, and our employee walks on that same stage following Steve Jobs' presentation. It's that kind of caliber of people. And what I've seen is that when you bring those people together, they change things. They unlock doors. They make things possible that you didn't even know could be happening. And you know, a lot of people think, well, bringing on great people, that's expensive. And it is. When you're looking at a cost per person basis, we pay top of market for all of our roles. But what I've learned is that short-sighted because the best people outperform the average by 2 to 5 to 10 times as much. And so when you look at it at a cost per unit produced, the best people are actually inexpensive. And once I made this change in our company, we went from growing at like 10% per year to doubling in size every single year. It was incredible to see.
Wow. So, and that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about, uplifting employees because when you talk with that passion, like you actually believe it. It's not fake lip service, folks.
Mhm.
Like I can see it in your face. You actually, I mean, I'm jumping for joy. Like, how do I qualify? How do I get in? How do you find the people, right? Tell me more about like sort of that search. Cause when you talk about find people in and out, I mean, it sounds like you're literally looking, across the country.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's you mentioned too, like, yeah, this is something I firmly believe. I think the number one most important thing that I do is to build a culture where people love their work. And so, like, I'm at every single orientation. We do so much to support our culture. But regarding finding people, we had the same problem everyone else did. At least here in the United States, it was really hard to find construction workers.
Sure. Yeah.
Not only
Yeah.
to find the best, like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. And so what we did when we were about 100-person company, we ended up hiring on 15 recruiters. 15. So 15% of our staff were recruiters. And what they started doing is they started going out and looking, because the best people aren't applying for jobs. If you hope to just post on Indeed and get great people, good luck. It doesn't really work
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
Instead, what they start doing is they start identifying all the people in these other companies and figure out who are the better people, building relationships with over time. Because then when we have a job posting opening, then we can pull them in to come work here. And that's how we found some of the incredible people we have.
That's magical, right? You went deeper. This is where that creative thinking occurs. Hey, the average human being says, I'm going to go hire a recruiter and find me, a person or two recruiters or three recruiters or whatever. You actually said, that's crazy. I'm going to hire the recruiters, 15 of them exactly, to become part of our team. And that's going to build the team organically. That's what we're talking about. Why? Because now I'm leveraging the skill sets of human beings. Right? I'm
What's
not
amazing
counting
is
on.
that
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
if
Go
you
ahead.
truly believe that people are at the core, that culture is at the core, that guides decision making, right? So when you look and say, okay, 15 recruiters, that's expensive. Well, it is. But when you look at what you're trying to build, the culture you're trying to build, you realize that's just a prerequisite to what we needed to do to make it happen. And so the decision became easy, even though it was unconventional.
Okay. So all of this is happening, and this is sort of leading my brain to a space, and I want to bring this up now because now I think I understand if the way of thinking is in that regard very unorthodox to say the hell with the traditional approach, we're going to flip the script on everything. And now I'm curious because Norhart does something special about sort of bringing together that tech world to the construction world. How the hell did that become the way it is? You broke the patterns there too. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So when we talk about tech, the greater context of that is really about solving housing affordability. So that's what we think about first. Tech is a resource or a tool to help us do that. So
Mm.
when we think about solving housing affordability, what's interesting is if you look at the past 60 years, industries like manufacturing have improved labor productivity by 760%. Agriculture, it's 1,500%. Do you have any guess of what construction has done during that time period?
Not even. I wouldn't even.
Nothing. Well,
Oh my.
10%,
Okay.
which is
Wow. Wow.
terrible.
Wow.
It's been
Wow.
nothing. So really the strategy is quite simple. Why not learn the lessons from these other industries and apply it to our own? In the world
Yeah.
of construction, for example, you've got a variety of different companies working on one project, different companies. So you may have a different company that's the owner, a different company that's the coordinator of all the construction, the GC, different developer finding and coordinating sites, different subcontractors, plumbers, electricians, HVAC, all different companies. If a manufacturing company or if a construction company were to produce cars, you'd have a different company installing the windshield, a different company installing the door, and a different company installing the wheel. And then, of
Mhm.
course, the wheel company would call you up and say, dude, I'm sorry, I got delayed in another project. I won't be out there for 2 weeks. Your line would be
Yeah.
shut down. Right. And then
Yeah.
when they did show up, they'd be irate because they could only work on one car at a time. So we brought all that work under one roof. That improved some efficiencies. But now, once everything is under one roof, we can start doing some really cool things. For example, the assembly line. Very basic. It revolutionized manufacturing. But how the heck can you take a building and drive it down a line? Well, we don't. What we do is we take the person and move them through the building. So right now, every 5 hours, every single team shifts by one unit through the building. And at the end of our building, every 5 hours, we have a brand new completed apartment unit. And that one technique takes our projects that might be 15 months and drives it down to 9.
I think I captured that, and I want to come stay in that space for a second.
Yeah.
So tell me that again, because we're talking about the overarching thing is creating affordable housing, which is magical and beautiful, especially what we've experienced in the past, several years, I suppose, of things going up tremendously. So come back to this. So you're saying the philosophy of the assembly line approach is I'm actually moving a group of people. So take me through what that actually looks like in the construction world.
Yeah. So the first, we'll use the carpenters for an example. So the
Sure. Yeah.
carpenters come in for the first 5 hours and they frame up that unit. They then
Okay.
go up a floor, and there's some technical. We'll keep it simple. They go up a floor, and then the plumbers follow them. And then carpenters go up another floor, plumbers go up another floor 5 hours later, and electricians follow them. And so we have all of our teams just shifting through the building every 5 hours. And so at the very end of that line, the painters or the cleaners leave that unit, and now it's a fully complete unit. And every 5 hours, you see another one finish off of that line.
Okay, I'm following you, and I'm still not vividly clear, right? And here's
Yeah.
here's what I'm thinking, right? If I was to say to you, okay, let's talk about a multi-residential thing, and there's 10 suites on a floor. Let's say that takes a week to rough in. You're breaking it even granular. You're talking hours. So how do we define a pocket of time? Like we're talking 5 hours here.
Mm-hmm.
You've
So
done the, yeah. Tell me.
every 5 hours, it's an apartment unit. So they come in at 8 a.m., they frame up that unit, and then they move on to the next unit at 1 p.m. Or at 1 p.m., the plumbers come in right behind them on that first unit to plumb that unit.
So we've done the data research to say that we need to ensure we have the right people in the right spots because this is a 5 hour time block. So if that means, 5 carpenters rather than 2 to get it done in 5 hours, that's what we're doing, right?
Yeah, and it's a lot of work to make that happen. And maybe one question, if you're taking a deep dive, people might be asking, "Well, Mike, you're just organizing the work a little bit differently. How does that actually save any time or money?"
Right.
The key thing that we've seen is that, let's take the drywallers, for example. In a traditional construction site, the drywallers won't even show up on site until they have an entire floor cleared. That might be
Right.
like 50 units,
Right.
right? And then, so you've got an entire floor that nobody's working on. So there's dead time in that schedule. So what we're doing is we're saying that there is no part of the building that's never not being worked on. Well, if I said that right. That's
Right.
never, yeah. And so because of that, we can take our timeline that was 15 months that had all this dead time, this dead pocket time in it, and drive it down to 9 months. This technique doesn't necessarily improve efficiency in the team member itself, although it does. What it really saves is that time window, which saves the capital costs. There's a variety of other techniques that we use to improve the efficiency of the team members themselves as well.
Well, yeah, look, I think that when we talk about the overall reduction, what shows up for me is we're actually reducing it to a unit by unit basis rather than a floor, because that's a very traditional metric. When the floor's ready, call me, I'll show up to
Yeah.
rough in, right? You're saying, no, man, like once we start flowing, there will be no dead space. So you've perfected this technique, right? So
Yes.
tell us a little bit on how that shows up downstream, like that cycle flows through rough in, then it flows same thing through finishing type thing.
Yeah, it goes all the way down through all the trades, all the way through finishing and cleaning. The interesting challenge when you really get into this stuff is how do you handle when one person gets off, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
that can create this whole trickle down effect, and it's really a challenge. And so as you're scaling this up, you introduce, like, we call them blank batches. So
Okay.
we might have a 5 hour gap where nothing is actually happening in that unit. We're doing that intentionally, temporarily, as the teams are getting better about their flow. So that way we don't get this negative chain reaction. But we still work to eliminate those. And so what we do then is we work with each individual team and say, okay, what happened? Why are you off? Why is it 7 hours this time? They actually have boards where they say, here's the time, this part task, what time it was supposed to be done, what time it's actually done. If it's off, why? And then what are we doing to solve that so that it's no longer a problem in the future? And that there's a lot of time and attention that goes into working out the solutions for those little issues that come up.
There it is. Thank you. That's the vivid clarity in my brain need it for the certainty as well to say, okay, so it's not just magic pill. No, we spent a lot of time doing the, collecting that data, doing the research and saying, how do we get better? And you've done that
Yeah.
because you've allowed for a little bit of schedule slippage somewhere in the onset to say, look, we've got a 5 hour block, and that 5 hour block is, training, education, lessons, digging into lessons learned, and what do we need to do to get better, right?
Yeah, I often tell the team that there are 10,000 problems. And it's not, there's no like one magic silver bullet that can reduce cost by 30%. It's just solving a ton of little things. And so, really, at a leadership level, what you're trying to do is you're trying to build a culture of continuous improvement through things like that board I talked about. But another technique we
Mm-hmm.
use is every single week, the teams produce a video, each team. And the video shows off some kind of, it can be minor, but a minor improvement that they made to their workflow that is now forever and always better. And so they do competitions, and so it's a lot of fun to see that happening. But what you're trying to do is in the minds of every single person to not be, they're not just swinging a hammer. And I talk about this at orientation. I want them to be designers designing the next way construction is done. And that's really the key, is unlocking the brain power of everyone on our team to solve for these issues.
We're gonna pump the brakes here and pivot back. That was really cool about this video. So tell us a little bit more about that. So you actually, part of the culture is, which is beautiful. We're dropping the stereotype of I'm a dumb construction worker, which is the worst thing I could ever hear, and it hurts me every time I hear that. To, you're a very valuable human being. Tell us what you think. So you've created video. We're creating videos to say, here's how we got better, and then you share them organically with the rest of the teams. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, I think this is a big area that construction in general has failed on, is that it's just a bad kind of culture, right? Typically. And so we fight very, very hard to build that right culture. High respect, high quality people that are working here. You go on site and there's not grumpy people. It's like, hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Welcome. And in fact, I have one guy a couple of weeks ago. I was in a team meeting. They're talking about all the issues, right? There's lots of little issues that we have to solve. Saying the issues are draining. But the reason I come to work every day and the reason I love being here is because of the coworkers beside me. And so that's the core. You build that up. But some of the things that we were just talking about is recording those videos. So every week each team records a video and then they show it off at the team meetings at the end of the week. And there's competitions. I think right now they got like an NBA bracket going on where different teams are competing to become the champion of Norhart, to come up with the best ideas. And there's so much fun. Yeah, people are hooting, hollering, and laughing. It is fun to see.
So what are you doing to create? I mean, it sounds like there's a ton of psychological safety occurring. People are seen, heard, and
Yeah.
understood and valued for who they truly are. What are you doing to help support that environment and
Oh,
create that
yeah, there's
culture?
a lot. Because that doesn't happen overnight. I think number
No.
one is you hire the right people. Uh, number two is you talk about psychological safety, right? So at
Mm.
orientation, that's part of my orientation every single week. And one of the stories I share to everyone is I was meeting with one of our teams at one point, and we were talking about a variety of things, like purpose, mission, vision with that team. At the end, we talked a little bit about psychological safety. And one of the team members who's really quiet, there's maybe 15 people in the room, spoke up and said, Mike, I am afraid to share my thoughts. I look around the room here and everyone's so much smarter than me. I'm pretty new. I don't, I have ideas, but I think, dude, you guys have already thought of this. This is just a stupid idea and I don't share it. But what was so
Mm.
powerful is what happened next. Each team member in that room went around the circle one by one, looked him in the eye and said, dude, we love you. We chose you. We want you on this team and we want to hear your ideas. We talk a lot about how if it's any one of us battling out against a genius, the genius is going to win on a problem. But if we get a high functioning, good quality team of people, the team will win. But what's the key there? The key is that we're tapping into the brain power of every single person in the room. And then I share with them, I said, guys, who do you think I'd rather hear from? The brand new employee or the 30-year veteran? The answer is the brand new
Mm,
employee. And the reason that
mm.
is you haven't drinking the Kool-Aid yet. You've seen things from a different perspective. You've seen things from a different light. You can give us ideas and insights into what we're doing. And then I also share one last thing, which is I don't want us to be fake good, right? There's so many companies and sometimes countries
Oh,
that
yeah.
pretend to be what they're not. I'd rather be honest with our failures so that we can work to improve. In fact, our engagement surveys we do every 6 months, I share our results to the whole team openly. I also share all of my results completely openly, unedited. And it's not always pretty. I promise you that. And then this last year or a year ago, we started sharing all of our results unedited on our website. We can actually download and read all the comments from our people, what they actually have to say. And so I think that's an important step to this too, which is being honest that I fail. I'm not very good. Like, and if I'm not that good, like we're all screwing up here. It's okay to screw up. That's not a bad thing. Let's have a discussion. Let's work to improve from it.
Yeah, you know what? Thank you. You sparked a lot of emotion when you sort of talked about that. You painted a very vivid picture of that round table sort of discussion going around the room.
Mm,
Pretty powerful, right? And then sort of to pivot, one thing that really resonated that I captured in a note was, that that fake good. How
yeah.
often, like, we're here on this podcast because we're talking about flipping the script and doing it differently and dropping the bullshit of the way it's always been done. And part of that bullshit narrative is, yeah, we believe in people, we believe in people. And then the door closes and it's all profit driven. Not once
Yes.
have you and I discussed anything about profit because we know we have the knowledge and expertise that say profit's organic. Like when you do the right things over and over, it's the small habits. Profit naturally occurs. We don't start with, hey, how am I going to make a buck? It doesn't work that way. It never has.
A freaking men. I could not agree with you more on that. In fact, I even look at my life and say, like, at my death, like, what is money going to do for me? And I shove $100 bills in my grave. Like, what's the point? And for me,
Mm,
I really never, honestly, been driven by money. What I'm driven by is can I make some lasting positive impact on the world? And when you have that kind of perspective, I've never had to worry about money, right? But I'm not here for the money. I'm here to do right by our people and to make positive change in all that we're doing.
okay, I'm pivoting hard here because I'm so curious right now. Everything you shared, there's so much emotion inside of me. I'm sitting inside my body and jumping saying, hell yeah, like I want to go work for you at whatever capacity, whatever the hell you do in life, period. I don't care if it's like we're gonna make lollipops, we're gonna make the best damn lollipops and we're gonna enjoy it. So um I'm honored to share space with you and I thank you tremendously for showing up that way for the human
Mm.
beings in your orbit. Um so magical. Take our audience through how that shows up with the clients and the project experience, because let's be honest, some of our clients can be real jerks at times.
Yeah. So for us, our clients or our customers would be residents. And you know what I've learned? So for us, we want to create a Disney-like experience. We talk a lot about this and what the lessons we have learned from Disney.
Yeah.
But what I've really learned is that all the systems, processes, and stuff is good, but you don't really create incredible experience unless you get the employee experience right. Sincerely, you've got to build the right team, get them in the right culture, the right headspace, the right place, give them the fortitude and strength and mental capacity because you're pouring so much into them so that they can deal with the challenges out in the residential and the customer space. And it's incredible the results that have happened from that. I saw a complete turnaround once I just all I did was change my mindset around that and supported the team properly. And we had a wonderful turnaround there within our customer space as well. Um, but our well, for a couple of things with customers, if it's a really bad customer, obviously you shouldn't. Some customers are just not worth being customers. So we
Sure.
evict people, we move people on. We don't let people into our buildings that we think are going to be a bad cultural fit in some way with their buildings. Um, but but still, there are good people that have bad days, and so I think the key there is to pour into your employees so they have the mental reserve to handle that when they're dealing with the customers.
Mm, two things there, right? And one I jotted down, like there are good people with bad days,
Yeah.
period, right? There are good, children with bad days, or good animals with bad days, or good human beings with bad days that oftentimes, I think one of the biggest things we overlook is, well, that guy, Jonathan's a jerk. Well, maybe, or maybe there was something else buzzing around that, you know, if we create the psychological safety both internally and
Mm.
externally, then you might learn that, and that's the difference, right? And it seems like you're doing a fantastic job of that. So thank you for that. There was something else that sort of jumped out at me, and I'm really curious. When you talk about moving the customer into the building, is there like an interview process you go through? Because sometimes I heard you say something about like sometimes we choose not to work with that person, we choose not to let them into that space. Did I capture that correctly?
Yeah. So I have to be because our business is heavily regulated, we'd be a little bit careful because if someone meets the criteria, we do accept them. But
Of
we
course.
have criteria we put in place that excludes a certain group of people. So in particular, if you're financially not in a good spot,
Hmm.
usually like evictions on your record, right? That
Hmm.
is going to disqualify you. If you haven't paid other companies that you owe money to, or if you have criminal history in some way, those sorts of things will exclude you from being a customer of ours,
Hmm.
just because we want to build up the right community. But but anyone who meets the qualifications is allowed to move into our properties.
Thank you, and that's the clarity, and I know that I don't have necessarily an issue with that, and anybody, I'm sure that there's going to be people out there who are going to challenge my thing to that, except that the boundaries and the baselines are vividly met. Here's the expectations. We're not hiding it from anybody. If the qualifications, if you check the boxes, then let's have a conversation and see how you pivot into that, man. Like talking to you, it brings me up something. And when we were introduced to, it was like this. This is. I quote this line. Mike is like the sriracha sauce of leadership. When I hear that, I'm like, that's pretty exciting. Like, how does that make you feel when you hear that?
Well, that's awesome. I haven't heard that quote before. I appreciate whoever said it, but yeah, we're trying to change things up. We're trying to make things different. Oftentimes I hear from people in the world of construction is that I do it this way because I've always have done it this way, right?
Right.
My
Right.
granddad did it, my dad did it. I'm going to do it the same way. And we've really taken the approach that anything that we're doing, it can be changed. And we actively and regularly change things. Now, that creates pain and headache, right? Because anytime you do something new, you're terrible at it at first. Uh, but again, why are we here? We're trying to solve for housing affordability, and we're not going to do that by just following what everyone else has done in the past.
My gosh. Totally random thought. Like, here it is, man. When we're talking here, you're exuberating so much calmness and patience, right? And
Mm.
that's humbling, right? I mean, we're talking construction. We're talking. You're running an organization here. There's a lot of pressures, a lot of stressors. There's a lot of, the day to day BS that comes with that, and many people running organizations feel that. What do you do to stay so grounded?
Well, that's a great question. I think it pairs to my long-term vision, right? My dad died at a relatively young age, and it really reminded me how short life really is.
Hmm.
And I think about this almost every day is how do I want to spend the minutes I have here on earth, right? Because that's all we got. And for me, a big part of that is to create a meaningful positive impact. And so if I know that's where I'm headed, I just know there are going to be tough moments. There's going to be good moments. It's going to be up and down. It's going to be all over the place. That's okay, right? I think I've really come to a deep understanding that there's going to be points that this could be horrible. I'm going to be bad. I'm going to be bad at what I'm doing. We're going to try something that fails. But I've gotten very comfortable with that failure, with those challenges, with being bad at stuff. I wasn't always like that. But I think getting comfortable in that space, knowing that's just part of the journey, and knowing what the long-term vision is, helps me stay grounded toward that path.
Thank you. And when you say comfortably bad at things, total opposite of traditional egotistical authoritative style leadership. So
Oh
thank
yeah.
you. I mean that's what drives me. I got to ask this question too. Like when you talk about that, and you're so humbling about it. When you're faced with so many decisions, is there a question that goes through your mind that helps you navigate past tough decisions? One or two questions you ask yourself.
So the first really is, what's our purpose? Our purpose is to create a better way for people to live. It's about housing affordability. And so that guides a lot of the
Mm,
decisions, like actually I had a electrician come to me just a day or two ago, and he said, Mike, when we're on site and we have something that is a little bit off or whatever, we ask ourselves, what would we want if this was our house? Like, and then it makes the decision really clear, right? Even if to spend a little bit more, we want to do the right thing for the customer in the end. I just love that. Um, so that's a big part of it. And I think it's also making sure we're being fearless, right? As we're trying to tackle new things. Are we guided toward a decision because that's what's easy and comfortable? Or are we guiding ourselves to the decision that's really the right thing for the long-term goal?
wow. Thank you. And to come back to the goal is affordable housing, like that's it. Like, do the right thing. All choices are tough. Choose the less tough choice, right? So thank you. Look, it's pretty magical. Some of the ways you connect with people.
Mm.
Is there like a couple of questions that you ask? How do you get to know the most out of somebody in such a short period of time? Is there a couple of questions you ask?
Yeah. Well, I think I don't necessarily have preset questions, but what I try to do is just get curious, just like you're
Mm,
doing now. This is great, right? What do they say? What can I dive into that? How can I better understand where they're at? And so, even if it's a field I know nothing about, like, hey, I'm a neurosurgeon. Oh, interesting. Tell me about that. What is it like actually drilling into somebody's brain? Oh, I had this crazy case. Oh, you had a crazy case? What are some other crazy ones, right? You just start getting curious, and I think that's aided me a lot in conversation with people. Um, yeah, just being open to learn something. I think having a desire to want to learn, I think, is important as well. Just from everyone you meet and just outside of meeting people. But getting curious, that's probably the biggest one that I use.
yeah, like the fireworks went off inside me when you were saying that, because that's it, and that's one thing that's, in my opinion, is missing the most, right? It's the curiosity.
Mm.
You're looking at one, and you're talking about, okay, you're in neuroscience. Neuroscience, some might say it has nothing to do with construction. I'm going to flip the script and say it has everything to do with construction, because if I understand what that person's interested in, how they're wired, tell me about it. Like, tell me more. You're not sitting there volleying unsolicited information their way, saying, this is how great I am and this is how great our company is. You're doing the exact opposite. You're peeling back, and there's no
And
script for it, man. You're simply just digging in. Okay.
yeah, and I think the interesting thing there for anyone to think about is, where is your head at? Right?
Yeah.
What's your mindset at? If your mindset is, I'm just doing what I'm doing right now, it's all for me, I'm just focused on myself, well, guess what? The conversation you're gonna have is pretty flat and hollow. And I've had lots of conversations with people like that, where it's like, oh, this is just they're not engaging. But if your mindset is, hey, I want to genuinely connect with the person in front of me, guess what? It's gonna flow naturally.
Yeah. And there's the vulnerability, right? I love what you talk about. There's the hollow conversations, because I'm curious, right? To say, are those hollow conversations happen because people come in with presuppositions and sort of, oh, I'm going for an interview, I better, dress proper and say proper and go over all the pre-interview questions. And instead, I got to. I'm excited. I'd love to be part of that interview process with you because there doesn't sound there's any script to it. It's kind of just like, Jonathan, I want to learn everything there is, right? And I'm going to show up and say, yeah, I screw up a lot, and yeah, we screw up a lot, and yeah, like there's vulnerability. You're not armoring up and saying we build the best buildings possible. We've done this. Nobody gives a damn, truthfully, right?
Yeah.
Nobody really cares. They want to care about how do you connect with me,
You know, it's
and
interesting. I
yeah,
was at a premiere of an HGTV show a few months ago, and I walked in, and people didn't really know me in that event, and I just started just walking up to people and talking to people, and there was a few people I went and talked to that like hardly would even give me eye contact. Were just like you could just tell they wanted nothing to do with me. It was interesting because when some of the people who showed up who knew who I was, like the game changed because they introduced me to all like the major players, and like my point is what do you like that person, because they weren't willing to be engaged with me in that moment, lost an opportunity for a meaningful connection. They thought I was just nobody, right? If you're judging that in advance, you're losing some meaningful opportunity.
wow, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Like this is it, folks. You talk about leveling up employees and having people around, having the right people around you. There's no script for it. It's showing up as a better human being. It's becoming curious. It's actually giving a damn about the people in front of you, not bringing presuppositions and dragging your baggage from the past. Show up, shut up, and listen. And when you shut up and listen, everything else changes. Like you're again. Like it's not just. I'm not simply here, volleying this information. We're at opposite ends of the continent, and you're saying, Jonathan, I live this. It's true, man. Like to have
Yeah.
the courage and commitment to say, hey, man, hop on a plane, fly here, whatever the hell the formula is or the prescription is for that employee. You would have never known that if you didn't become curious. You would have never known, hey, man, this person likes to their family is here. Well, we're gonna some people come and say, well, I'll never fly them back and forth. It doesn't make sense. And I'm using this as an example without even knowing the details. Except you're saying, tell me what it is, and we'll make it possible. It's creating that
Mm,
experience.
yeah, that's exactly right. Getting curious, being involved, caring, it goes a long way. As a CEO or just a manager, changing your mindset has such a profound impact on the people around you because it changes your subtle behaviors that you don't even know you're doing that have a ripple effect on the rest of the group.
And then it's like, well, just coming full circle. Then it's like, who the hell doesn't want to work for you? Who the hell doesn't want to be part of a great organization that's actually making a difference? Like there's so much going on. Even when you describe your team, it's cool. I saw this slogan, Team 404, which is so interesting and so curious, right? Because it's like now we're talking the tech world meets the construction world, and it's tremendously unorthodox. I'm not spoiling it because listen, folks, drive yourself to the website. I promise you, this is not like a 30-second glance, move on to the next. You're gonna flip page by page and go through it and go, holy smokes, I want to know more. Like Mike, high five to the team. Great job on that. Great job on
Yeah,
that.
there's some fun Easter eggs on the website too. If you go to it on different days of the year, you'll see different Easter eggs based upon those days. It's pretty cool.
Well, thanks for creating that experience. A couple of fun questions, I suppose, or curiosity questions. They're all curious questions, but tell our audience you're a phenomenal human being, and that
Mm,
doesn't come without doing the hard work behind the scenes and having the
yeah.
self awareness and digging in. And I'm here to illuminate that because I think that there's some ideologies out there that think, oh, Mike is just built that way. No, Mike does a shit ton of hard work behind the scenes that nobody hears about. That Mike has dark days, and Mike's got support networks, and Mike's a human being, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, there's no magic blue pill that does that. It's the hard work. And so I want to pivot that. Tell our audience from your experience as a human being, is there a habit, a ritual, a routine, something that's shifted your life, that is worth sharing with the world, to say that if it made a difference for you, it might make a difference for them.
Tom Brady, who's America's probably best football player of all time, uh, has been quoted as saying, "If you want to perform at the highest level, you need to prepare at the highest level." And I could not agree with that more. I don't think I've met a lot of literal geniuses in my life. They're incredible people. I am not one of them. I think what I do differently is I'm an average person willing to put an extraordinary amount of effort to learn and grow as much as I possibly can. And I think one of the key things literally every day. I try to read a book a week. Every night, I watch a lot of YouTube because it's amazing the things you can learn on YouTube. I join master classes. Literally after this podcast, I have to go back to one of my master classes that I'm in. I do just general classes. I did one from Disney not too long ago on their customer experience, how they make that all a reality. And you think things like reading a book a week isn't hard? You just put it on auto and audio. You listen in the car, you listen to your workout. You can learn a ton through that. Um, and so I'm tenacious. I am utterly tenacious about learning as much as I possibly can. And then also bringing coaches around me to tell me, hey, Mike, you're an idiot. You're screwing this up. You're doing that wrong. You're getting one thing I look at very carefully too is, are my employees regularly telling me how I'm screwing up? Right? If that stops, I know there's a failure. It's not because I gotten perfect, because that's not the case. The case is there's something there that they're afraid to bring to me or what have you. Um, but I want that feedback constantly, and I reward people. I encourage people. I tell them in orientation too. Like I give them examples of people that have given me that feedback, and that helps me learn and grow.
Thank you. Um, Full stop on that one. Nothing more to say. Like you, continuous improvement, and what really jumped out at me, and I'll share it vulnerably, is how unorthodox. It's not like, okay, I'm building construction. I need to go take an estimating course on how to estimate better. Who gives a shit about that? You're talking about the Disney Experience program. Like I want to learn, and YouTube, right? Simple stuff.
You know, the thing I've learned about learning is learning from the very best is a far better way than learning from the average. For example, we'll fly in world experts to come work with us, even if it's just for a few days. We had a guy come out who is a savant at concrete. He can make concrete clean itself. It was incredible, right? I'm never going to learn that from like the average concrete guy. It's only from the couple people in the world who've discovered ways to make this happen. Like, yeah, it's so much fun and it changes your world. And I often think too, like for me, I've been able to create, um, make learning in my life in a way that others might see entertainment, right? There's certain things I really have to pay careful attention to, and that's probably half of my learning activities. The other half, it's more of a casual thing. Like, hey, I'm doing more social media tonight as I'm eating dinner. I'm going to watch a video of how some guy improved his YouTube channel in some way, right? And so
Cool.
it's a casual kind of enjoying the experience as well. So I don't have to use my time for just plain entertainment.
Magical. Thank you. Thank you for pivoting down that. I mean, this has been a tremendously impactful, meaningful conversation for me, for our audience. So I thank you for sharing space with me. How do people get in touch with you, man? Like, this is the miraculous. How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, as you mentioned, you can visit our website, which is norhart.com. That's norhart.com. A couple of interesting things there. One is if you click on shows, we have a new show we're launching, or we just launched a week ago, which was Zero to Unicorn. It's about the journey. It's a podcast, but the journey of small business growing to billion-dollar enterprise. It's starting with our story, but we're also lining up some really interesting guests that will happen after we're finished with our story. And then we also have an investment platform if people are interested in getting investing.
Yeah, I saw that. That's actually really magical. Listen, folks, becoming part of Mike's world is and his team. But I'm just talking to Mike today. Jump in, like 2 feet forward. You're gonna fall, and you're gonna fall into a miraculous group of people. So, Mike, listen, thank you for taking the time out of your day. Uh, Tremendously grateful. Like it just filled my heart to have this conversation. It's pretty meaningful. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, folks, thanks for staying here until the end. The overarching thing about everything we do, build the psychological safety. Mike said it. Problems are draining. They're exhausting. And yet we're designed to solve problems. Everything changes when you actually show up and give a damn about the people in front of you, people doing work. Look at some of the questions Mike asks, becoming curious about the people in front of him. And the most important thing is he never stops and stays stagnant. He's learning. He's learning at his own pace, whether it's through YouTube, whether it's through audiobooks. He's hiring the best of the best. And he's leaning into the experts. Like, this is it, man. Even Mike's telling us, get coaches. Get coaches. I'm a strong believer. Look, I'm telling you, I'm here, and this is it, man. Like, work with great people. Put yourself in the right scenarios. Some things you suck at. We all have stuff that needs to be unpacked. That's why you learn. That's why you pivot and look towards other industries. What are other industries doing that we can learn from? Some of the ways Mike talks about the assembly line, bring the assembly line into construction. Some of the ways Mike talks about the Disney experience, bringing the Disney experience into construction. The story Mike shared about vulnerably opening up with employees around the round table. Can you imagine that? Like, how does your world change? Get better. Work with great people. And remember why you started what you started initially. Until we connect next time, do something great. Make somebody else's day wonderful. And keep showing up better today than you were yesterday.